So thanks. I'm Kenneth Bailey, and I'm with Design Studio for Social Intervention. And we are a nonprofit, and we are a creativity lab for the social change sector. And a lot of our work is similar to your work. It's like really similar. I was like, we got to talk. But yeah, it's funny because our model is sort of a classic 501c3 nonprofit model. We do raise money from the social change side of the nonprofit sector. We get small amounts of support from the arts sector, but we work with artists, activists, and academics to support social change organizations and social change initiatives to imagine new ways to solve social problems. So I'm gonna basically just talk about three initiatives that we've done under Art Place Americas, under the, have you guys heard of creative placemaking and this stuff that's going on right now through Art Place America? Well, we got invited to do a series of pop-up projects in a neighborhood in Boston called Upham's Corner. And I'm just gonna talk through a few of those to give you some examples of how we work and to talk about sort of our approach to sustainability and really how we're trying to take the needs of the social change sector and to really bring artists in as consultants and as advisors and as subject matter experts on the things that they know in terms of helping community-based organizations, social change agencies be more imaginative. So this project here, which was funded in part by Art Place America and Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's work on childhood obesity in communities of color, that's what we should talk. It's called Public Kitchen, and in it we posed the question: if kitchens, which are normally domestic and normally thought of as part of the private sphere, were made public the way we think about libraries or schools, how might that change the quality of life? And how might that change sociability inside of a particular neighborhood? So we ran Social Kitchen for a week in two aspects of Upham's Corner, one closer to a part of Boston called Roxbury, and another one closer to a part of of Boston called Dorchester. We had 9 community partners. We had 10 events, and we had like 700 to 1,000 people in that week come through. And I can't read that, but, oh, yes I can. It's right here in front of me. So it included events on the street, at this local greenhouse that was ran by the Food Project in Boston, Woohoo Food Project. We had a hub that was inside of Upham's Corner proper, where people could come through and understand the concept of the public kitchen, drink coffee, eat food, share recipes, talk about how much money they spend on food a month, ask questions about food that they might not get to ask otherwise, and really build connections with each other. The residents build connections with each other that they wouldn't necessarily get to do just by walking down the street. For one thing, a lot of residents learned how many residents in Upham's Corner actually cook for a living and would love to show them how to cook quinoa, or would love to show them how to make bitter melon, which kept coming up. Like a lot of people interested in like bitter melon, or how to cook dandelion leaves. And you'd have folk who were like, oh, I just made dandelion leaves last night. And so these strange things would happen. They actually weren't that strange, but these fun things would happen just by virtue of having the space for a set of questions to be asked that wouldn't be asked in your normal environment otherwise. And the thing I also want to say here, oh, I don't want to say it there. I'm going to say it here, is by hiring and contracting artists, we contracted a culinary program person, and we contracted 2 makers to do the installation inside of Upham's Corner Main Street to make 2 mobile public kitchens. So we had kitchens that literally were rolling around on wheels, and we would do cooking demonstrations out in public at local farmers markets and in front of our own space and at the local community greenhouse, that by virtue of contracting artists to do that work. Artists got to do what it is they love, but get to really participate in helping communities sort of have these conversations where they get to imagine other forms of sociability. And then artists get to make money because we're not paying, like from what I understand, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think we pay better. I think that like when artists get contracts with us, like we're paying a different sort of a market rate than when artists are getting contracts in the sort of normal art gallery world, because we're paying like consultant fees. We're not paying like for you to develop your capital prestige inside of the art market sector, because we don't know the art markets. That's not how we think. We're thinking like you bring a set of aesthetic skills, you bring a set of sensibilities that we want to contract you for. And what you do in your own art world is yours. So this project is another project called Democracy Time, where we ask the question, what do you need to know from news, or what knowledge do you need to develop in order to participate as a person who lives in the United States in democratic discussion? So we would go to neighborhoods or with social change groups to rallies or events, and literally post this sign up, hire some person, get a video team, and just pose the question like, so what do you need to know in order to participate as an active person who lives in a particular city or neighborhood, and have people answer the question. And that's another one of our sort of larger missions, is to really help grassroots groups and start to see the patterns of what people feel like they need to know in order to really function as active members of society. And then back in Upham's, we did this project called Making Planning Processes Public. And here we hired a local visual artist, we hired a graphic designer, and we hired a local installation artist to take a body of knowledge that we were learning about the different kind of urban planning initiatives that were happening in a neighborhood that weren't necessarily transparent, not necessarily in a devious way. They just were in sort of urban planning speak, and we translated a set of concerns or a set of bodies of knowledge so that normal residents who are walking down the street could learn about some of the initiatives that were going on that would change the quality of life in their neighborhoods. So what in Boston, I don't know if we have this in New Orleans, but in Boston we have this local paper called the Metro. One of our local artists turned the Metro, he hacked it and turned it into a paper about the planning initiatives that were going on in the neighborhood. And so the entire paper is like a set of descriptors about the different issues that were going to be made, that decisions were going to be made around, like, do you want to fence down the side of your street, or are you interested in having a set of fast food restaurants on this particular corner? How would you spend $3 million, because $3 million is about to be spent on this in your neighborhood? And it just gave people a way to actually step into giving input into the planning processes that were happening in the neighborhood in ways that they couldn't have in the classic sort of urban planning environment, where you get up on a Saturday morning, you go to the BRA meeting at 9 a.m. and you listen to the PowerPoints on what's about to happen, and you can weigh in. So we made it possible with artists and researchers to make space for people who wouldn't have an opportunity to chime in on these issues, chime in. And dance court, you guys would dig this. We would take over tennis courts that weren't being used in neighborhoods and set up a DJ system and ask people to pop up and dance for 5 hours and see if it happened. this is another slide from the work we did in Public Kitchen. I guess they put it there because it's really pretty. But in terms of sustainability, I would say we're sort of our model is a sort of a 501c3 model. We get funding, we get contracts. I'm trying to build an individual donor base, and I think and we haven't had as much luck with cracking the shell within the sort of art funding sector. And I go back and forth as to whether or not it's something we should really continue to try to move along. But for us, I would say we're trying to build the design studio into an institution that can be around for a while, and we look at sort of more sustained institutions, and we want to figure out how did they make that happen. Like how do you grow from a $300,000 a year organization to a $600,000 a year organization to $1 million or more organization? Like what kind of steps do you have to take in order to do that, and what kinds of relationships do you need to have with individual donors as well as foundations in order to make that happen? A lot of our funding or a lot of our current support comes in the form of about 50% contracts, and I don't know how many of my other colleagues like get contract money. And then we also get foundation support to do the kinds of jobs we do. And we're still growing our individual donor base in order to do more adventurous programming with artists. Like I was talking to some of the participants earlier, like there are questions that we want to ask that we can't get to directly through contract work or foundation work because they tend to already come with a set of guidelines and a set of mission embedded in them, and which is fine. Like we don't mind working like that, but there's certain questions we want to ask that may be more artistic or aesthetic directly, and we don't have the kinds of financial freedom to really put our own commissions out in order to make those kinds of things happen, because most of our funding and our money are tied up in helping answer a set of questions that we've been asked to answer.